Alright, after 11 years, I figured it's time we gave PvP another shot during the current Rush event. Before this, I only played 40 odd games, but that might be changing. I'm genuinely having so much fun, I might cut out a day per week just for PvP going forward. But that's not what this video is about though. Instead, let's talk about the build I use, as I've been getting some questions about it. I originally did what I would advise any new player to do. I went to MetaBattle, checked their top PvP build section, and I picked something I liked. And while concise, the build page actually details skill usage, where the build will excel and what to focus on. So if you're a new player, I definitely recommend checking these out for yourself. Now, after a couple of games, one of my viewers suggested I try out their Hammer Staffbreaker build instead. It forgoes a more commonly picked discipline trait line, features easier to use utilities, and most importantly adds so much crowd control. Since I'm a new PvP player, I get matched with people that are not competing for the top spot either, and I notice a lot of them struggle with this crowd control. After my stream, I decided to check out Kiba, who was live and came highly recommended on MetaBattle. He later also popped back into my stream and he suggested a few changes to the build. Later, another great PvP player joined, Butter Peanut, and he chimed in and suggested a couple more changes, and that brings us to our current build. Much like we would in PvE, we'll take defense and we'll pick up all 3 bottom traits. That means we gain protection when using our heal ourselves when spending adrenaline, and gain resolution when we either block an attack or are struck by a critical hit. We also gain stability every time we disable a foe, which we do a lot with both weapon sets. On top of that, we inflict weakness with our burst attack while dealing more damage to weakened enemies, and to top it all off, have our hammer skills deal even more damage. This build is basically centered around using Hammer 2, which just takes out a chunk of your target's HP and can be reset with Hammer 5, which is also a knockdown and will activate some of our other traits. As mentioned, no discipline. Instead, we'll go with strength, which will grant us quickness every time we disable an enemy, help us deal more damage, increase our HP, and grant us more endurance every time we land our burst attack, which means even more dodge rolling. Lastly, we take Spellbreaker, which turns all of those dazes and stuns in something even more annoying for our enemies, as they will also be immobilized, stripped of one of their boons, which in turn damages them and further improves our full counter. You might notice we don't take Magebane Tether, and that's because we gave up the resistance from Resilience roll in the defense trait line for more offensive power, which is why we go with Revenge Counter instead. When it comes to the gear, PvP uses standardized stats, which means you don't need to craft anything. For this build, we're going with the Paladin Amulet for increased survivability, which has certainly helped me stay alive longer. Rune of the Traveler will cover some of our movement speed shortcomings since we're not running discipline, and grants extra boon duration as well as an overall stat increase. And Relic of the Midnight King for permanent 25 might and fury. On our staff, we're taking Sigils of Cleansing to aid with condition cleansing and energy so we can dodge roll even more, which we'll also take on our hammer, but combine it with a Sigil of Savagery for an increase to stun duration and damage to stunned foes. As you can see, I also swapped the utilities from the original build, again per Kiba's suggestions. Mending helps with Condi Cleanse, protection uptime, and increases our damage through peak performance. Shake It Off and Balance Stance are both great stun breaks, and either will cleanse even more conditions or provide stability and swiftness. And Bull's Charge basically packs everything into one skill. It deals damage, knocks down enemies, grants quickness, might and stability thanks to our traits and gear, while also triggering peak performance for more damage and also evading attacks during the animation. As for the elite, I'll list Rampage, which is one of the more commonly picked ones, but I am terrible at using it correctly, so I chose to run with Battle Standard in the footage. This can revive downed allies or stomp downed enemies, or even both at the same time, and has helped control the tides in group battles for me. The playstyle is very straightforward. As I already mentioned, you want to focus on using Hammer 2, so Hammer 2, 5-2 should be one of the combos you keep in mind. Hammer 3 also deals decent AoE damage, and Hammer 4 is another knockback that hits in a circle around you. Coming from PvE, I was also pleasantly surprised just how potent the Warrior Staff is in PvP. Staff 2 and the Burst Attack still deal decent damage, and the other tools will help you stay alive even when you shouldn't be. Staff 3 will heal you for a good chunk of your HP, provide Aegis, while also weakening the enemies and providing you with 5 seconds of unblockable attacks. Staff 4 is yet another crowd control tool, and Staff 5 blocks all incoming attacks for a short while before flipping over to yet another heal. Your biggest tools are arguably your profession skills. Staff 1 deals damage while healing you and granting regeneration, and the Hammer F1 ability lets you jump to your target, deals damage and stuns anyone hit, which will again activate all of those traits that will grant you your boons. The star of the show, however, is full counter, which blocks an attack, interrupts and dazes whoever gets hit, so again grants you all of the boons from your traits and gear and resets your F1. So the name of the game is using your burst, full counter and burst again. Keep in mind that this is mainly a duelist build, so you'll do well going to one of the side nodes and either try to win your 1v1 and cap or decap, or stay alive as long as you can when you're outnumbered. If you can keep 2 or 3 people occupied on a node, that means your team should have an advantage elsewhere on the map. Before I go, I really want to shout out everyone who has helped make and adapt this build during my streams. ManiacalMetal for providing the base template, Kiba and Butterpeanut for the adaptations, and anyone else who has been chiming in with tips and tricks. I'm gonna continue spamming PvP games this week, so feel free to drop by and tell me what else I could or should improve. But for now, I'm out.